Hi and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Enigma. Whether you are listening or watching, it's a huge welcome. Please do check out the YouTube channel. We have over 300 videos now. I can't believe it's 300, but over 300 videos now on that channel. So this episode is powered by a good friend Kevin O'Leary, who is the CEO of Red Leadership and author of this amazing book, Where the Evidence Takes Us. Now, this is an incredible memoir of a Scotland Yard detective with tales from hostage negotiation and covert operations to commanding the iconic London Olympics, which is in 2012. As leaders, calm, fast decision-making, fluid leadership style, and a constant human-centered approach is absolutely essential, especially when everything and everyone is in utter chaos. It will always win the day, every day. Check out the show notes for more details. But on to today's episode. So I'm with the wonderful Spencer Gore, entrepreneur, and I'm going to call him a disruptor as well, but I'll let you listen to him directly for that. He's the founder of the Gorely Group, which is an investment company that currently owns a number of healthcare businesses in Europe and the United States. We'll find out more about that, especially as the group's mission is to create gold medal winners. I have questions about that. A multiple award winner, entrepreneur of the year, and listed in the Times as one of the 50 most ambitious business leaders. And what do you do when business is good? Well, you go out and you buy a football club. So he's also the majority owner of Chelmsford City FC. I have lots of questions about that one as well. Come back to me after the break. Don't miss this incredible episode of the Leadership Enigma. Hi, I'm Adam Pacifico, and welcome to the Leadership Enigma, a world-ranked, award-winning podcast that's insatiably curious as regards what leaders do, how they do it, and importantly, why. We'll delve into the human doing, but even deeper into the human being and the power of human-centered leadership to drive sustainable change. So whether you're an entrepreneur, business owner, corporate executive, each week we speak to global experts, academics, rising stars, ambitious upstarts and disruptors, as together we will discover that success leaves clues. Spencer, it's a huge warm welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. Really good.
I really appreciate the effort to come into the studio. What do you think? You've done lots of these. You've got your own podcast.
This is right up there with the best ones. It's an amazing setup.
So we like that. Also, it's good for James to hear that too. A lot of effort goes into keeping this going, and it is a fantastic home. Listen, I want to talk to you about so many things, but I want to start from the beginning because every single one of us has always got quite a unique route into what we end up doing for a living. So let me take you back to almost school days. Yeah. You know, I've got teenagers and one kind of loves the school side of things and one not so much, and we'll find a different path. But what was your path?
I loved school.
Yep.
But because of the people I was at school with. So I had some really good friends, never had any, like I'm sure I'm 50 in a few weeks' time. My memory's not as good as it used to be, but I don't remember any really bad times. You know, there were no sort of sob stories or anything like that.
Yeah.
I didn't like lessons massively. I didn't like learning, or I didn't feel I could learn in a traditional way. It just didn't make sense to me. And sort of fast forward to my kids.
Yes.
I've got 3 kids, 17, 15 and 13, and the two boys, two youngest ones were diagnosed with dyslexia. And my middle one was first, and I looked at all the symptoms that they said that he had, and I was like, well, I've got all of those. I wonder if I'm dyslexic, because I wasn't diagnosed at school with it. And then when my youngest one, the school said, look, I think you should go and get him assessed because I think we think he's dyslexic. I was like, I'm going to do this too. So it's just before COVID. And so I went and did a half-day assessment, and the lady said, you've got severe dyslexia at the end of it, and you've just found ways of coping with it. So I think that explains why I didn't really get on at school. I mean, I passed most things.
How did it play out at school? Did in some ways teachers just dismiss you in some ways, or think you were lazy in some ways? Because we know it was very different in our time.
Yeah, I was always. You look at all of my reports. That the phrase that used to come up was things like class clown, because I used to mess around to cover up for the fact I didn't know answers, or I was embarrassed that I didn't know answers.
Right.
And I'm that sort of person anyway. But I think that became a sort of a defence mechanism for me, was to cover up by just being silly. So I left school after a year of A-levels. I did my GCSEs. I did 20 minutes revision for my GCSEs.
Right.
So I hope my kids don't
O-levels in our days, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. And then I did a year of A-levels, decided school wasn't for me.
Yep.
So you could leave school at that age in those days. So I left. I went and got a job in a pub as a kitchen assistant.
Right.
I then did 6 months an insurance brokers as the post boy, effectively. I used to literally open the letters with a letter knife, and I was on the princely sum of £4,500 a year.
Right.
And after about 6 months, again, I loved the people I worked with there, but I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I want to be successful. I wasn't thinking about, all the trappings that go with it these days. But I was like,
did you know what you wanted to do, or you just knew you wanted to do something
didn't have a
better,
clue.
like something more?
Professional footballer or stuntman when I was about 7.
I love it. I love the aspiration.
Were my goals. But my dad had always run his own business, and so I think that's all I really knew.
Yes.
I wouldn't say I always wanted to run my own business, but I like trying to make money and sort of doing little projects here and there to try and do them, and always try and do it by taking a bit of a shortcut. And so it wasn't probably the best way of doing it. But I went back to college, and one thing I've learned over the years is I like shiny toys. I jump all over the place. I get bored if I'm doing the same thing for too long. So I went back to college, did really well in my first year. Second year, pretty much I passed, but I didn't get the grades to get into UCL where I'd been offered a place.
Right.
But it turns out they told me I needed certain grades, but actually they'd given me an unconditional offer but didn't tell me. So I did get in there, and I did really well in my first year at university. I got first and 2 1s in most things.
Yes.
Then I got made football club captain in my second year.
Uh-oh.
And I failed my second year.
Right, okay.
But we were the first team in London to have a UEFA qualified coach. We were the first team in London to have a sponsor on our shirts. So I really, it's not like I was just being lazy. I was really working hard.
That's where your energy was going.
But on football. So I repeated my second year, passed it. But I ended up leaving UCL without a degree. I didn't even sit some of my finals because I'd lost interest. So again, you can imagine my parents were really proud of me for doing things like this.
Is there an ADHD element in there too?
I think there's probably a bit of OCD, and there's also I've never had the diagnosis for these things, but yeah, I'm definitely have elements of these different things. And
I'm going to jump around slightly because this really resonates because I have a daughter who was diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
And then, we looked at the test. It was a similar story. My wife went, well, isn't that you?
Yeah.
And then I got tested, and this is in my 50s, and a chronic ADHD, which explains so much.
Yeah.
How did you feel now as an adult with kids of your own? Because I know how I felt. And when you suddenly were diagnosed and maybe had an understanding that you wish you'd had 30 odd years ago.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
I remember I'd done the assessment down in near Norfolk because the person we'd used for my first child had moved down there, and we wanted to keep the same one for the second child. And I remember driving back, and I was really quite emotional, thinking, shit, if I'd known this when I was at school, I could have done so much better, and I probably wouldn't have caused my parents anywhere near the heartache that I caused them by constantly failing things and letting them down in my mind. So it really hit me quite hard. But I also thought, this is brilliant. I've got a super strength that other people don't have. And I also realised, I've always thought one of my biggest strengths is spotting opportunities. And I was like, I wonder why I spot them and other people don't. But I think it's because my brain, 10, 15% of people are dyslexic.
Well, the neurodiversity piece.
So I spot things that other people don't spot. So I think that's a real skill and a real asset to have.
Yes.
I just wish I'd known about it a bit earlier.
As a founder and as an employer, do you find yourself now looking differently at neurodiversity, or looking differently at how you get a very diverse workforce into your various businesses? Is that deliberate now because of the diagnosis?
I wouldn't say we push it more than we would have done otherwise, because we can talk about this later, about I recruit on the values, and I just think it's the best person for the job.
Yeah.
But it certainly is a thought process when I'm recruiting. But we've just done 2 assessment days this week. We've just taken 7 new grads on.
Okay.
And that's something that's going through my mind is, people talk a lot about diversity in the workplace and whatever, but they generally mean, have you got male, female, white, black, etc., etc.
We're talking about diversity of thinking.
Neurodiversity, I think, is equally as important, because if you all think the same way, you're all going to come up with the same idea, aren't you? Whereas if you've got all that different thinking. We had a guy that joined us for an assessment day, funnily enough, about 5 years ago, or during COVID, and he left us a few months back to go travelling. It was a goal he always wanted to do, so he's been working towards that. So it's brilliant, and he'll probably come back and join us. But he had ADHD, or he has ADHD. And I remember coming back from a meeting one day, and he was sat outside the office, on this little seat outside the office at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he had his phone out, and I was, what on earth is he doing outside the office at this time of day? unusual for him because he's normally on the phone selling. So I just walked over and sat down next to him. I said, "You all right there?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm just watching Match of the Day." Didn't bat an eyelid that, oh shit, the boss has just caught me outside. And I just said, and he said, look at this guy. I said, that's cool. And I just got up and I walked into the office because I know that if he sits at his desk for more than about an hour on the trot in one go, he starts going, gets stir crazy and stuff. So he has to just go out and
reset almost.
Yeah, exactly that. So it's like, but if I hadn't have known that and hadn't have known that he was ADHD, I'd have probably been like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be working, get in the office sort of thing. So you do have to factor these things in, I think. So
what impact has it had on you then as a leader? Because I know you've always gravitated towards being your own boss, being in a leadership position. You are a boss now of multiple people and multiple businesses, but what's it done for you as a leader in relation to how you lead others?
Again, I was talking about this yesterday. I think the biggest noticeable thing for me is typically a leader will stand up and talk to the team and do, when you're doing events or do public speaking. I hate public speaking with a passion. And people tell me you shouldn't use that mindset because, blah, blah. But I've gone through all that. I've tried everything to like public speaking.
Yes.
And I don't like it. And I think it's because of the dyslexia. Because when I got assessed, I was told that my memory, short-term memory, was in the bottom 1 percentile.
Right.
So I can't remember sort of scripts or presentations. And also because of the dyslexia, I'm not very good at reading out loud because words jump all over the place. Whatever. And they're the two sort of techniques you use generally for doing presentations. And when you're standing up there, you either read a script or you memorise stuff. So I hate doing that. But what I love doing is having conversations with people like this. Exactly this. So when we do our company events, which we do every quarter, we take the whole company out, and every summer we do a big summer ball. Yeah. We have guest speakers that come in from all around the world.
I've seen some of this on social media.
But I'll do a 2-minute introduction at the start, but that's it. And then I'll do maybe an hour and a half Q&A with the team or with some of the
Well, that's the conversational piece again, isn't it?
Right. And so that's probably the biggest thing that I do differently to most leaders, I would have thought.
Do you think that's also you understanding what your strengths are and what the development areas are? And I always said, but play to your strengths. Yeah, and that's what you're doing.
Definitely. It's taken me a long time to realise that and to do that. I used to try and force myself to do these. I've stood up in front of the office in the last 10 years and literally could feel my hands shaking. I've got sweats. So it's taken me a long time to get there. But now I'm more than happy to have conversations like this.
Do you know what? I had Gary Ridge sat in that very chair only last week. Gary Ridge is the former chairman and CEO of WD-40, who's now stepped down from that role. And he says 3 of the most powerful words for him as a CEO was, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Yeah. And there is a power, isn't there, to a leader being at a place in their life where they're saying either I don't know or I'm not good at that. Yeah. And I'm okay with it. I'm comfortable with it. So, kind of what thoughts have you got for young entrepreneurs coming through now who almost want to know it all or be it all where you simply can't be? What advice are you giving to young entrepreneurs now who are the lifeblood of this country, one hopes, going forward?
We just had these assessment days. One of the tasks they had to do was a cold call. And one of the guys was doing it and he made up a price. He wasn't given the price today and he made it up. And afterwards we gave him some feedback. And I said, one of the things I was taught in sales very early, which I think applies to entrepreneurs as well, is be open and honest. If you ask me how much it costs and I don't know, it's so much easier for me to say, I'm not really 100% sure on that. I'm going to go and find out because I don't want to give you the wrong information. And as soon as I know, I'll get back to you.
Yes.
Because 1, I'm not lying to you, so you trust me a bit more. 2, I'm not giving you the wrong information, then I'm going to have an awkward conversation later. Yeah. And it shows a little bit of vulnerability in me. And I think that's the same with being an entrepreneur. You don't have to know everything. As long as you're a sponge and you want to learn stuff, just learn as much as you can. But as Clive Woodward says, you've got rocks or sponges. Sponges want to soak up knowledge and rocks just think they know it all and you're not going to change them. So be open to learning.
Have you had, or can you point to some people in your life who were good leaders that were surrounding you at some point, or some people that you felt as positive role models? I mean, you even mentioned your father, as he had his own business, and I'm assuming he was a role model for you to maybe do what you're doing. Yeah. So are there some instances, or even people that you point to and you say, that's the style of leadership that I aspire to, or I can see that I would gravitate towards?
Yeah, there's one guy, he probably won't know this, but I worked at EMAP for a year, probably early 2000s.
Yep.
And my boss's boss there, a guy called Gordon Thomas, was a massive inspiration for me. Probably the best boss I've ever had.
Right.
And I often think about what it was about him And a lot of it was his just drive and his passion. You'd never meet anyone that was an employee. It wasn't his business. He has his own business now, but that was so driven and passionate about the product.
Yeah.
And I still remember at Christmas we had a sales floor with about 100 people in, and there was a Christmas tree in the middle of the alley, the walkway sort of thing. And he was always rushing everywhere because he was so big. He just wanted to get stuff done. And someone's talking to him, and he just carried on walking while he was talking and hit this Christmas tree and knocked the whole thing over. But that summed up Gordon. He would never stop because he had so much going on, because he wanted to achieve so much.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I think as leaders, we have a duty to inspire our team, but I also want the team to inspire me. So you're not going to openly say, I'm a bit down today, or I've had a few drinks last night, or I'm a bit tired. But
you're always being watched as the leader.
But we always have days like that. And when you see the rest of the team being really passionate and driven, that massively motivates me.
I always say to people, think of a good leader, and sometimes the focus is not on what they say or what they do, but actually how they made you feel. Yeah. How did he make you feel?
He made me passionate about it. I wanted to be better. I
wanted
to deliver for him, but it wanted me to deliver more for myself as well. So very infectious.
So just help us understand the Gorely Group, because it's an investment company which owns a number of healthcare businesses. So just help people understand the position you're in now as a self-made businessman and entrepreneur.
Yeah. So I've got the Gorely Group. I own 80% of that. So I set it up. There's a guy that had worked with me at my previous business called Dan Healy.
Yes.
He joined me as a sales guy on £16,000 a year.
Yeah.
And he worked for that company for a couple of years. Then I set up EMJ, and he moved over there. And I said to him, if you hit your targets in the first year and the second year, you can buy 20% of the business.
Right.
And he hit those targets, and he owns 20% of the business now.
Wow.
So Gorely Group is me owning 80%, and me and my wife owning 80%, and Dan and his wife own 20%.
Amazing.
So underneath that, we've got a healthcare division, which was what the bread and butter of the business was to start with.
Yes.
So we've got the European Medical Journal. We've now got the American Medical Journal that we launched. So we took 3 of the team from Europe and moved them over there. So they're now living out there and running the business. And we've just worked out in the last few weeks, we were out there for quarterly planning, that they're in the top 1% of businesses in America that started up last year.
Wow.
In terms of size and growth.
So
it's been they've done a great job. Then we've got a business called EMJ Learning, which is if you're a doctor, you have to get so many CME points every year, continued medical education points, and it has to be accredited. So that's a company that does accredited work,
right?
And that's based out in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Then I've got the football club that I bought last year.
We're going to come on to that.
I bought 60% of that last year.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of other businesses that I'm working on that haven't been launched yet, that will be launched probably this year.
Oh, can you say more, or is it?
Yeah, it's in the sort of training and recruitment space, because our biggest challenge has always been recruiting the right people.
Where's this entrepreneurial spirit coming from? Is it coming from your dad?
But I think he gave me the confidence to run my own business. It didn't seem like a weird thing to do. It was just like, well, I wouldn't know what an employee does really, because he's never, growing up, I didn't understand that.
Yes.
He was always sort of at home in his office or out seeing clients.
Yeah.
But again, I think the neurodiversity, my brain is just always looking for things. I was never the best at anything at school because I like to do lots of different things.
Yeah.
So I think, my brain just is always jumping all over the place. And so I see an opportunity. I'm like, I've also got this ridiculous confidence that I could be the best at anything in the world. Again, that comes from my parents. My mum, whenever I was getting told I'd failed at school or done something wrong, and she was like, all I remember ever saying to me repeatedly was, if you put your mind to it, you can be the best at anything you want to be. And I sort of really believe that now. I think, if I wanted to be a race car driver, I could be the best race car driver there is.
See, that's amazing that your mother instilled that in you, because as you said earlier, you were always disappointed that you were letting your parents down.
Yeah.
But actually it seems quite the reverse, that actually your mother was a huge foundation for you to actually
massively
keep reinforcing. You can do anything you put your mind to.
Someone asked me the other day, do you think your parents are proud of you? And I was like, I really had to pause about it. And I was like, without a shadow of a doubt, they're proud of me. But I want to do more and more to make them prouder and prouder. You need a psychologist to come in now and start unpicking all that stuff.
I've turned it into therapy.
But I had it's not like I had a great upbringing. So there's no sort of demons in there that have made me like this. But I just want to make them proud. And I like to be the best at whatever I'm doing. And there's a book by Grant Cardone called Be Obsessed or Be Average.
Right.
Be Obsessed or Be Average.
Yeah.
And the concept is it doesn't have to just be one thing, but pick whatever you want to be good at and be obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And it might be, I want to be the best dad in the world, the best, the healthiest person in the world, the biggest business. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But pick those 2 or 3 things and be obsessed with that, and then forget everything else. Don't worry about anything else.
Is there a standout for you in relation? Now you are a leader of many, many people, multiple businesses across regions. Is there a standout piece of leadership advice that you keep reminding yourself or you almost live by? Almost a personal purpose for you in relation to how you're driven or how you lead?
Well, a phrase that constantly comes back to me, it's not how I'm driven, but is if it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
This is true.
Because, Christ, weekly something will happen that you're like, why am I doing this? I don't need to do this. I could sell the business, never have to work again.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'm doing it because I can do it. I'm really fortunate that I'm in a position to do this and help hundreds of people. We've got people that have got racing teams now that we sponsored because that was their, BHAG, Big Hairy Audacious Goal. We talk about that a lot. Darren's BHAG was to have a racing team. So he's now got a racing team. He works for us, he's got a racing team. Rob's BHAG was to go and live in America. He now lives in America. And it's like, it's really cool being able to go and help people achieve stuff.
So you're making other people's dreams
We're making
a reality.
gold medal winners. That's what we talk
Well,
about.
I'm going to come on to that because I think you said the group's mission is to create gold medal winners. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So it's probably from my experiences growing up, I wanted to be the best at everything, and I want to help everyone else be the best version of themselves. So I will give you an opportunity.
Yeah.
Whether you take it or not, it's down to you. But I will give you the opportunity, and I will try and support you as best I can to become a gold medal winner. But it's a two-way thing. You've got to be really bought into this. I'll be really bought into you if you're the right person and you show me you're the right person. But you've got to really be bought in. And if you're not bought in, then fine. That's just it's not right for us. But
where's that passion coming from in you?
Because I again, probably going back to my mum saying that you can achieve anything you want. I get the piss taken out of me in the office all the time for name dropping,
right?
And it's an ongoing joke. But I love mentioning really successful people that I know, because I look at them and I'm like, well, you're no different to me. You got 2 arms, 2 eyes, and we're all the same. We've all got differences, but we've all got the same opportunities in life. There's nothing. I was at university with Coldplay. My boss was Ricky Gervais, so I referenced them.
Really?
I referenced
How
them
was
a
your
lot.
boss, Ricky Gervais?
He was the Ents manager when I worked at the student union, and then funny enough, I went to work on The Office, the second series of The Office with him. But he's one of the biggest, best comedians in the world.
Yes.
And Coldplay are one of the biggest, best bands in the world.
Yeah.
But when I knew them, he was my supervisor at the student union, and Will, the drummer, worked behind the bar in the student union, and we were all the same. Will liked hockey, I liked football, we used to talk about sport. Ricky, you like to laugh, I like to laugh, we used to sit and have a drink after work. And it just shows you anyone can be successful at anything if you work really hard.
Do you stay connected to these people?
I do a little bit, yeah. Yeah.
It's nice to check up on each other's progress.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my God, funny stories, right? So a little bit about creating the gold medal winners. We also talked about values are a big thing for you.
Yeah.
Look, values are a big thing for all businesses.
Yeah.
And again, had a fascinating conversation with Gary, the tribe of WD-40, in relation to the importance of values. He described it as they're the freedom and the glue.
Yeah.
So they're the ability for people to really understand the field that they're playing on, but they've got the trust, the autonomy, and the empowerment to do what it was they were hired for. Tell me a little bit about your view of the power of values and why you are passionate about them.
Yeah. So there's no wrong values in my opinion. Your values are right for you, mine are right for me.
Right.
If we're aligned on those values, there's a pretty good chance it'll work out. If we're not aligned, it's not going to work out. It doesn't mean either of us are wrong. It's just we're not aligned. That's how I see it. And so when we recruit people, we'll have like a telephone screening, then we have a competency interview.
Yes.
To see if you've either got the skills or the ability to learn the skills, because there's nothing we do that's rocket science. We can train people.
So you will help support and train the right people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the final part of the interview is a values interview. And I want to know what your values are, and then I can work out if they're aligned with me.
Right.
And our company values are my values because it's my company and they're right for me. And
Tell us what those are.
So it's been a long process that we've gone through, and we've whittled it down now to the easiest way of describing our values is EMG, European Medical Group. So the E is entire buy-in. You've got to be entirely bought in to our purpose at the business,
Yeah.
which is elevating the quality of healthcare globally. But in return, I will be entirely bought into you and helping you become a gold medal winner.
I've never heard that before.
So
Okay.
you've got to give us everything.
Right.
And we talk about
But it's
things
reciprocated.
like, both ways, 100%. And we've used this phrase before. I saw it somewhere. I don't know where from, so I can't credit it. But 99% of people need not apply, because we are looking for high performance people that really, really want to do that elevating of healthcare globally.
Right.
And we will give them every opportunity in the world to do that. The M is make sure you look after your own shit. So do your job and do it properly.
Yeah.
And then the G is go the extra mile. So once you've finished your job and you've done it really well, don't just walk out the door at 5 if your colleague's struggling. Go and help them.
Right.
But you have to do it in that order as well. So you have to be entirely bought in. You have to look after your own shit, and then you go the extra mile. Because we recruit people that are really nice people, and they have a tendency to go the extra mile if they see someone struggling, and then they don't get their own work done. So it's like, do it in that order.
That is bizarrely fascinating, because you are the second person, because Gary was the first, who talked about the fact they have values and there was a hierarchy to them.
Yeah.
I very rarely hear of a business who has created a hierarchy to their values, and then lo and behold, 1 week after the next, 2 of you walk through the door.
Yeah.
So the world works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
So just help us understand again why you've created that hierarchy.
So it needs to flow in that order. You could come in and go the extra mile, but if you're not doing it for the right reason, i.e. trying to elevate the quality of healthcare, well, it doesn't help.
Fine.
Or you could come in and see your colleague really struggling and go and help them all day, and then it gets to 5 o'clock and you haven't done your job and you've let a client down.
Right.
So yes, go the extra mile, but you've got to do your own job first, because so many people, because we hire people like that, they're all nice people and they want to help, but they don't realise by doing that, it can be detrimental to the business.
So there's the freedom and the glue, right in those 3 values and in the order that are prescriptive, but people are in no doubt as to what it is they're getting into.
Yeah.
I should have asked this question earlier. How comes healthcare?
I fell into that. I really did. So when I left university and had failed my degree, I didn't have a job. I did have a job, and I lost the job I'd got because I had needed my degree to get that.
Right.
And name dropping, Ricky said to me, "What are you going to do now?" And I said, "I've no idea." And Jane Fallon, his partner, who was a TV producer at the time, she's now a best-selling author, but he was like, "Well, she's looking for a runner. Do you want a job?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." So I went and worked. So I ended up working in television for about 2 or 3 years as a prop guy. Great fun, really hard work, but great fun. And the last job I did, sort of to complete the circle, bizarrely, was the second series of The Office with Ricky.
Right.
So that was quite cool. He'd gone from being my boss at the student union to my boss as a TV celebrity. I was like, this is great, but I don't want to be lifting scenery when I'm 65 like all the ex-BBC guys I was working with and stuff. So I was like, I need to do something different.
Yeah.
I need to get a career, basically. So I picked up the Evening Standard, first job, rang them up and got the job there. And it was publishing, and it was mainly healthcare. It did other stuff, but by the time I left there, it was mainly healthcare. So it was just because I knew that sector.
So this is by chance, but again, is this about you just being able to spot, in some cases, weak signals or even weak opportunities and then turning them to a full-blown opportunity? Scanning differently. You talked about this neurodiversity.
I don't think that job was an opportunity. Well, it was an opportunity, but but it was while I was at the job, I saw an opportunity.
So opportunity leads to opportunity.
Yeah, and so I saw them. We published. I'll sort of date myself here. We used to produce paper journals with CD-ROMs on the front cover.
Right.
And it was just at that time where ebooks were becoming a thing.
Right.
So I worked there for about 4 years, became the top sales guy, got bored. Long story short, went and worked at EMAP for a year where I worked with Gordon. And I worked there, and that was an exhibition company. So we used to go up to the NEC.
Yeah.
I was only there for a year, but this conference event was every 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was called Interbuild, and you used to get about 45,000 construction architects, builders, all going up there. but there was about 90,000 people would register. And I was like, well, this event it's every 2 years, and it's on for 10 days. And we don't do any marketing to them, after the event to say what's gone on there.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're missing an opportunity. But I then got headhunted back to the healthcare publishing company and to a different position. And that's when I saw this opportunity. I was like, well, actually, we do all these journals, but we just publish them randomly throughout the year. And I don't mean randomly. There was a reason from the business's point of view, but there was no logic for the doctors that were reading it. And I was like, well, all these big congresses that are out there in healthcare. So you've got the European Society of Cardiology that used to have 45,000 cardiologists turn up to every year. I wonder if there's loads of doctors that want to be there that can't get there, a bit like at Interbuild. And I was like, if we did an ebook and just did a summary of what had gone on at the event and went round to all of the exhibitors and said, you can sponsor for £1,000. There's 100 exhibitors there. It's £100,000 if we get them all in. And an ebook costs us nothing to publish, realistically. We could email it out to all of them.
Yeah.
Really. So that was my idea. And I put a business case forward, did a business plan, took it to my boss, then my boss's boss, then to the chairman who owned the business, who used to live around here, funnily enough. And I had to pitch it. It was a PLC. I had to pitch it to the board. And that was really nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And I remember...
Public speaking.
Yeah, exactly. I remember at the end of it, this was 2007, I remember at the end of it, the chairman said, it's a really good idea, but I'm not looking for new ideas.
Right.
And I walked out of that boardroom and I was like, this is too good an opportunity not to take. And within a month, I'd resigned. And I left a 6-figure job, just bought a new house, just had our first child.
Yeah. And
I went and set up a business. And that was the opportunity, was the healthcare and the exhibition, the publications and the exhibition, merging it together, which no one else was doing.
So there's taking advantage of the opportunity, but then there's also having the courage to do exactly that, which is the risk-taking part of
and it was the recession, the financial recession as well.
Apart from that, it was all lining up. Well, listen, things have obviously gone quite well because then you decided, is this the crazy part? I don't know, to actually buy a football club, Chelmsford City FC. Some would say that is always the fastest way to find a money pit to throw things into. Yeah. But just tell us a little bit about Chelmsford City FC and why you decided to do what you did.
So actually, perfect timing, because 2007, I left and set up my own business, and I had a non-compete from that business.
Right.
And I didn't want to go against them, so I did some stuff in the background. I was setting up bank accounts, but I thought, I'm not going to call any clients or break my contract here. So I went down to Chelmsford City because I grew up just in a little village just outside Chelmsford, so my local team.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I'm setting up a business. I've got 6 months non-compete. What can I do to help?
Just around the ground?
Just in any way at all.
Yeah.
And I happened to speak to the commercial manager, and he said, tell me your background. He said, well, you could help me sell some sponsorship and stuff.
Right.
So I ended up doing some stuff there, and then I had this idea that we could publish like an old, like you used to get the old footy annuals.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could do a footy annual for you, but we could do it for the fans for free, because I'll go and get sponsorship. And then I'm sort of practicing what I'm going to be doing with my business. Yeah. So I'm not breaking the non-compete because it's a different industry. Yeah. So I did a couple of these magazines, and I ended up doing them for a couple of different football clubs and made a little bit of a business out of it for a while. Fast forward to 2012, I was setting up EMJ. I'd had a previous business partner in the first business, and it hadn't worked out because we weren't aligned on values. And that's part of when that started playing in my mind about recruiting. But I sat down with my business coach, and the very first session, I'd met him at a networking event that we'd put on at the football club. So it's funny how these things work out. And he doesn't like networking, nor do I. So we sort of ended up chatting to each other. And the very first session I had with him, he said, and it's a question, if anyone ever wants a job with us, you'll get asked this in the values interview. But he said, if you won the lottery today, but it's topped up every night, so you do all the things that everyone says they'll do, you've travelled the world, you give money to charity, you clear your mortgage, you help your parents.
Yeah.
What gets you out of bed tomorrow at 9 o'clock? Because you don't need to go to work now. So what are you going to do with your life? And I said, well, I'm too old to be a professional footballer. So we'll forget the fact I wasn't good enough, but I'm too old, which is because of age. So therefore, I'm probably not going to be a football manager. So I guess I'd love to own a football club. And he said, what, so would you buy Liverpool, would you? And I said, well, one, that's billions of pounds, not millions. But two, no, that doesn't excite me in the same way, because at the time they were fourth or fifth. They're not quite where they are now. But I was like, there's only really one way they're going to go if I take over. They're either going to stay at the same level or they're going to get worse. Right. I want to take a team from really low and prove that I can get them to a really high level. Yes. So Chelmsford's the obvious one because that's my local team. And he said to me, okay, we're going to build EMJ to be the vehicle to allow you to do that. So I had a plan from 2012 till last year, 2024.
This comes back to creating gold medal winners again, doesn't it? Because the business was to enable you for the aspiration, which is exactly what you've been doing for other people.
Exactly that.
Okay. And so you bought Chelmsford when?
Start of August last year.
Right. So what does that actually mean?
I've got less money and less time than I used to have.
that I can understand, right? But you came in as the majority shareholder of that.
Yeah.
Are you the chairman as well?
I am the chairman. And
So
the CEO.
and the CEO.
At the moment.
I mean, let's just keep adding to it.
Yeah.
Let's just say they're in the sixth tier of English football.
Yeah, men's and women's both in the 6th tier.
Fantastic, men's and women's.
Yeah.
There's a stadium, there's a fan base.
Yeah.
This is competitive football.
Yeah.
You know, and I said earlier we're going to be talking against Simon Leslie, who's got Eastbourne Borough FC in the same division.
Yeah.
Again, there's all kinds of bizarre connections. But just help people understand. So this was always a passion of you. What does that actually mean, though, that taking the CEO, the chairman role and the majority stake in Chelmsford, what does this mean? What's this done to your life?
So since 2012, when I set that goal up, I made a very conscious decision to learn. I was like, well, if I'm going to own a football club, I need to know how to run a football club.
Yep.
So you look at a lot of my podcasts, particularly at the moment, I'm doing them with people in the industry.
Yes.
Because I can pick their brains and learn from them.
Right.
I've read loads of books on running a football club or owning a football club. I watch every documentary on running or owning a football club. I've got, bizarrely, as well as Simon, that I used to play football with, that owns Eastbourne Borough, I play football every Thursday night, and one of the guys that plays there owns Luton Town.
Okay.
And he bought them when they were right near the bottom. But yeah,
wow, so he's done that
journey.
on
that journey. So
they're struggling a little bit now.
They are, but they'll be all right this year. They'll stay up, I think. But it's going out there and soaking up that knowledge and learning. I went and did various things at the football club. So I was on the board a couple of times and helped out there. But one of the things that I realised, and this applies to everything I do really, is I'm not very good in a committee or if I'm not in charge.
Right.
Because I'm entirely bought into it. And I'm like, well, I'm going to give you everything. So I think
we're back to the values piece again, aren't we?
Exactly. So when I was on the board, I used to sit there and I'd hear people arguing about different things. I was like, this doesn't do it for me. So I was always very clear that, okay, when I take over, I want to be in complete control of this until I've got people that I trust, that have got the values and are bought in, but that's going to take time. So that's why I'm doing probably too many roles at the moment.
Okay.
But the club had been, let's just say for legal reasons, neglected a little bit over the last 7 years.
I hear you.
So there was a lot of work that needed to be done, a lot of money that we've had to clear that we didn't know we were going to have to clear.
Right.
And it had been neglected. And so we've spent this season really just getting the foundations right. But we're really in a good position to push on next season now. So we're going full time for the first time in the club's history. We've just appointed a full time manager for the first time in 40 odd years in the club's history. We've got so we don't own the stadium. We rent that off the council because, again, like a lot of football clubs used to, they got stitched up by a property developer years ago and lost their ground. So we
how many? What's the capacity at where you are?
3,000, just over 3,000.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So we've now started conversations with some landowners about buying some land and building a new stadium.
Really?
Yeah, that's a 5-year plus project.
I can only imagine.
But we've also cleared all the debt with the council, and they've told us we're in the best position with them financially since 2006. So they're now been a lot more helpful when it comes to various things around the club.
Yes.
So a lot of it's just been firefighting and building a platform to push on.
But a passion.
Massive passion. I absolutely love it. And it is so time consuming. But it's the best thing. I'm driving from here back to the club later on this afternoon.
And what's the aspiration? Is it to? I'm assuming probably take them into the professional leagues, as the top 4 leagues.
Yeah, I get laughed at and told off for saying this, but it's Premier League. I want to be the best at anything I do. Why would I aspire to be halfway better than we could be? So realistic goals that we're setting. We want to get into the National League in the next 2 years.
Yes.
We want to be in the Football League within 5 years.
Right.
I'd like us to be in the Premier League by 2038, which is our centenary year.
That would be pretty cool, right?
But the way. Well,
so you, Simon Leslie, and Ryan Reynolds, and you're all on a bit of a journey, right?
Paul, I played football with last night. He bought Luton when they were in the League 2.
Yeah.
They got relegated because they had a points deduction straight away, and he's taken them from the National League to the Premier League in about 13 years.
Yeah.
So again, my mindset is, well, someone else can do it, so why can't I do it? He's no different to me. So that it's not like we're going to say we want to achieve something that no one's ever done before, which can obviously still be done, but you don't have a blueprint for it. Well, there's blueprints for people taking teams from here to here. And it also drives me massively to make my other businesses more successful because they fund the football club.
Right. So one has to fuel the other, right?
So that drives me massively to make So I've got some other goals with the business club. 2038. I've got 2 or 3 goals.
Yeah.
One of them is to have the football club in the Premier League.
Gotcha.
One is to have the business at a certain size that will allow us to do that.
And growing that in the different regions as well.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So I've kind of final few questions. You've also got a podcast. So I kind of hearing you as almost as a forever learner.
Yeah.
You know, when you talk about the challenges with dyslexia, but actually you're a forever learner. So what's the podcast all about?
So again, I think that comes back to when I was at school, I didn't like learning in a traditional way. As soon as I realised you can learn in whatever way you want, I was like, this is brilliant. This is great. The podcast is, I set it up, the first podcast I set up probably about 8 years ago.
Yes.
Purely for healthcare professionals.
Oh, you were right at the front of this then.
And then I moved, so that was probably about 8 years ago. Then we started doing commercial ones for clients during COVID because we couldn't go out to conferences, so we monetized it, and it's a really good product for us now in that sense. Then I set up, so that was the EMJ podcast. Then I set up EMJ Gold, which I was targeting, rather than doctors, it was the pharma professionals.
Right.
But what I wanted to do was something a bit different. So I wanted to talk to people in different industries and see what we could learn from them, and could we impact that on healthcare. So I met a surgeon once he was at a conference and he had like the freezer bag clips.
Yes.
He was giving them out for free. And I said, why have you got those? He goes, because I have the pattern for it. I developed them for surgery. And I love the fact that he'd got a transferable product like that. And as I was leaving, he gave me a toothbrush, a bendy toothbrush. I said, what's the story behind this? He goes, I invented the bendy neck for a surgical instrument. And then I sold the patent to Colgate.
Brilliant.
And so I love looking at things like that. I love looking at when you see the cyclists in the Olympics now wearing these heated suits.
Yeah.
Because they took the Formula One tyre heaters, and they know that if the tyres are warm at the start of the race, you go quicker.
Right.
It hasn't got to warm up naturally. Same with your muscles. If your muscles are warm before a cycling race in the velodrome, you're going to be quicker. So I love taking things from one industry, or seeing people taking one thing from the other. So that's why I started interviewing people that weren't in pharma necessarily, but for pharma professionals. And then I decided I want to branch out even more and just basically use it for an excuse to meet really clever, successful people that I wouldn't necessarily meet. So you're Sir Martin Sorrells, you're Sir Clive Woodward, you're billionaire Grant Cardone's, you're the only person in the world to have seen the curvature of the Earth from 2 places, Scott Parazinski. And so I just do it from a personal point of view that I want to learn, and I hope that by me wanting to learn, that other people will learn from it as well. So.
Yeah, well, listen, it's been fascinating to talk to you. And I got one last question, and that's, with every experience that you've had and with everything you're doing right now, what's the best piece of leadership advice that you've ever given or received that's front of mind for you?
Have fun.
I can live with that one.
You've got to enjoy what you do. Life is too short. I have it here. One life, live it. One life, love it. What's the point in doing this if you're not enjoying it?
I agree entirely. Listen, Spencer, thanks so much for making your way into the studio. I know you're going back to the football club now, which sounds fun in itself, but I really appreciate you coming into the show.
Thanks for having me. Really
Thanks very much indeed. Cheers. Join us again next week for more curiosity and insight with the Leadership Enigma. We'd love to hear your comments on today's show, as well as suggestions for future topics and guests. Get in touch with me on LinkedIn or visit us at www.leadersenigma.com. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe on all your major podcast platforms and on our dedicated YouTube channel. Thanks again for joining the community.